This week's headline is that mortgage applications fall to their lowest level since 1997. Stay tuned to find out more and what's been happening in the housing market. I'll be covering some of the major housing trends that have been developing as we've gone from an incredible hot, frothy market into a very cold and chilling market here. And some of the data that I found is very concerning, so I want you to watch and listen and kind of be abreast without having to worry about any of the crazy headlines that you come across on any social media platforms. If you don't have time to watch the whole thing, here are the 5 major takeaways that we'll be going over in depth here with some graphs. The first one is, of course, the headline, which is mortgage demand falls lowest since 1997. Our second one is housing affordability index below the 2008 low. A new home inventory is the highest it's been since 2008. New home prices to income ratio are at record highs, and home sales are down 36% in 2022. And according to November's data, they were down 5.2%. So that's shocking. That's the most they've ever been down in any month, I guess, since we started measuring this stuff. So yeah, let's take a look. The first graph we'll look at has to do with our headline, of course, and that's looking at mortgage applications. So let me pull those up right here, and we can see, so this goes back 10 years. So what you're seeing in front of you here is this blue solid chart is the composite index of the amount of mortgage applications. And this orange line is how much interest you're paying on a 30-year fixed mortgage. And you can see that they're almost, the white space is almost inversely correlated, and then at a certain point as mortgage rates fall, there's a lot more mortgage applications here, so there is a slight correlation, but it's not 100% 1 to 1, or 1 to -1. But here we can see this is going back to January. So in the beginning of January, we had the lowest it's been in the last 10 years, minus this one little blip we had here when COVID came out and nobody knew what to do. This goes back to, I think, 1991, and essentially we haven't seen such low mortgage applications since, well, even here, so I'd say mid-90s. So that's saying something, just how much buyer demand has fallen. And what is a mortgage application? Well, a mortgage application is something most buyers, so about a third of buyers pay cash, and the 2/3 remaining use a mortgage. And that means 2/3 of the buyer pool have shrunken considerably, at least the measures we can track here. When it means there's less buyer interest in getting applications, that means that there's the sellers of houses right now have very few interested parties in their houses, and that's the supply and demand correlation there. So as there's less demand, prices have to come down to meet the available demand. So that's just one thing here. The other part that I like to mention is that the Fed has said that they want to increase rates still. And while the Fed doesn't control mortgage rates, they are tied to interest rates. So as we can see that mortgage rates have dropped off since the high of the 7%, and now they're down closer towards 6%. But if we can take the Fed at its word, then we can expect this percentage to go up, meaning that we can expect our composite to continue to decline. So that's not good news going into our spring market of 2023. The next thing we're going to look at is the current inventory of new homes on the market. And new homes are ones that have been just recently built, so the only person selling them is the builder. No one has lived in them before that we know of. Let's take a look here. This is according to the Fed again, and we can see that new home inventory, so this is the amount of homes unsold on the market, is at 8.6. So this basically means that it would take 8.6 months to sell all the new homes on the market if not a single new home came up for sale. So we haven't seen that type of number here. We saw something similar here in 2010 as the supply was, they're finishing up the last supply of houses, but here we have the last major spike in 2008, again, a bubble. I'm not saying we're in a bubble now, it's just this is the type of economy we're looking at. Is there's just not a lot of people buying houses as they were just a couple of months ago here. I mean, we can look that they were pretty much sold out of houses. I know there were 12 people deep waiting for a single house in Gig Harbor. So it was pretty crazy. And it's gotten to the point that actually builders are now compensating real estate agents again. It used to be that the seller usually pays the buyer an agent fee, and I'm not going to go into why that is, but builders got to the point that they didn't need to pay agents. Like, people just crawled over other people to try to get a new construction just to live somewhere. And if they're working with a real estate agent, they saw 50 houses before then, and they said, okay, builder, here, take my money. The builder said, okay, great, we have a deal. And then the agent got no compensation for all the work they've done with the previous clients. So it's good now to see that builders are finally saying, we actually need real estate agents to bring us clients and people that would like to buy our houses. So it's good to see that the market's coming back to its senses. That said, if you've been waiting to get into a new construction home, if you want to, if you're in an old house, you're like, oh, stuff keeps breaking, I just want a new house, and forget about house maintenance for a while. Now's your opportunity. And not only that, that the builders are desperate to sell you because of their carrying costs, because for every month they don't sell their house, they're actually paying fees on it, and they're paying loans, interest, and it costs them money just to sit on houses. And if you go in saying, hey, this is how much money I have, it's how much you want, can you throw in all these extras? They will gladly do so, because usually these extras cost an arm and a leg. But if the builder can give it to you and still get the money that they essentially want for the house, and then pay off whoever lent the money, that works for them. So that way they win by getting the price that they want for the house, but you get a bunch of extras they would otherwise charge an arm and a leg for. So that's something to consider. Okay, the next topic we're going to cover has to deal with housing affordability, and it's been a major issue for the last couple of years as houses have gotten really expensive. Let's take a look. First, what we have here is also from the Fed, and as you can see here, housing affordability, this graph here, this index, has declined over time. Now, one thing to note is this data only goes back to December of 2021, so there's not a lot of information or any meaningful we can extract from this. So instead, I'm going to pull up this chart here, and this is annual mortgage cost as a percentage of household income. So basically, we're looking at 45%. So if a household was making, let's say, $100,000, $45,000 would be going just to pay off their annual mortgage. And that has been actually, overall trend has been on a decline, and all of a sudden it shot up all the way back to 70s to 80s levels. And that's almost similar to last week's email, where we saw that inflation is actually tracking the 70s and 80s inflation pretty well. So if we could extrapolate a little bit, just as a hypothetical here, we can actually see annual mortgage go up as the Fed, who they said, again, it's not my words, the Feds, that they want to keep increasing rates. And while they don't increase mortgage rates per se, mortgage rates do follow interest rates. So is it possible we could reach 50%? Yes, it's very likely. But who knows? It's also not probably going to sharply decline back to, a mean revision here. It's probably going to also then slowly, jitter down as time goes on. So that's just something to consider, that it's not going to be an immediate fix as housing affordability. Another interesting way to look at housing affordability is to look at a home price to median household income ratio. And here I'm going to pull it up in a second here. Bear with me. Okay. Sorry if you're on your phone, it might be a little hard to read. This is all the data going back to 1946. So back in 1946, the ratio was 6.52, and it's been steadily declining until I'd say we reached the 2000s, when the housing bubble started to ramp up, and it popped here at a high of 7. The ratio is 7. And now, it declined, and then all of a sudden, we're at 7, almost 8, and we've declined now to 7.6. So even though we're not technically in a bubble, anyway, we still have a higher ratio than when we had a bubble. And what does it mean exactly? What do these ratios mean? So if we look at, let's see, do I have it here? Median household income. I think we have it here. Okay, so in 2022 of October, the median household income was $78,813. And so we can take that number and then multiply it by our 7.6 here, and we end up with, hold on, the number, I got the number here, is just shy of a $600,000 house. So that's what we can extrapolate, is that on the median home price is about $600,000 based off the median household income. All right, now I promise you the last graph here, and I know graphs are always so much fun to look at, is the, what is this? United States existing home sales. So this is the amount of existing, so this is not new construction, this is a resale. About, let's see, this goes back 2000, we can look back a year, but let's just get an overall sense of what's going on in this graph. Basically, we've plunged off a cliff here. We did have this spike here during COVID when, that's an exception. But when we look back, it's like, okay, well, here is something similar. And then again, this is the housing bubble. So despite the fact that we're not, experiencing a bubble where people are like going foreclosure and people are losing their jobs and everything, this is just houses are not selling, or like people don't want to sell their houses anymore or want to buy them. So we can look at 1 year of data. We can see really how dramatically we've fallen in since the beginning of January. And this is the latest data. So basically what's happened in the last 1 month is, we've never seen this before, but November experienced a 5.2% decline in existing home sales. And just this year, we've seen a decrease of 36% decrease in home sales. So that's that's a cooling off market. That is quite a cold market, and we're seeing a lot of real estate agents quit the business because they just can't make ends meet anymore because there's so few activity going on. So we'll see what happens. But now we're going to look at some real-time data here in Gig Harbor and just show you how slow this season is, especially when it's coupled with our current economy. All right, I always like looking at Gig Harbor's data from the consumer standpoint, because this is what the public interfaces with. They don't have access to Northwest MLS, and as much as I like to use it, its interface is definitely not as smooth as Zillow's or Redfin's or Realtors.com's. So I prefer to use this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to type in Gig Harbor, Washington, and my newsletter's on the left. This is some data I pulled out. So if you're interested in glancing at that while I'm talking, you're welcome to look at it. All right, we plugged in Gig Harbor. Let's just reset all the filters. Let's reset all filters, and this is how I see what's on the market. For sale, I'm going to take off new construction because, again, builders are going through their own thing right now. And then we're going to skip price, beds, home type. We're going to check houses only. There's really no condos in Gig Harbor. There are some, but not enough to get a good sense of things. And then we're going to look at how long has it been on the market. I like to look at about 7 days, a week, to see really what's been going on over the past week. All right, so we have 5 homes listed this week that are still for sale. And then if we see if there's been any that have been pending or that have accepted an offer, we see that 7. Okay, so 2 went pending. How about that? So the 2 that went pending are, it's interesting here. So I believe it's this one, yeah, pending inspection. So it's I think it's a decently priced, well, you can look at it here, for $480, 3-bed, 2-bath, 1,426 square feet. It is dated inside. I'm not a, I mean, it's usable, it's functional. It looks like it'll need some updating, but if you can do it yourself, it's not that expensive to do some updates here. New countertops. I would just repaint and put new hardware on and call it a day. But that's a pretty good price. It's a little high square footage wise, but it is on a third of an acre. It was on the market for 2 days. So somebody was really interested in getting this house in particular. And we still got some popcorn. So yeah, this house does need some work, probably do it yourself, probably 50. Yeah, it's okay, but that's why it's sold. It's 480, decent shape, decent location. All Right, the other one that went pending was the one here in Borgum Boulevard. So it's interesting to see that there is currently one for sale in the same subdivision for 1.15, and this one actually had a price cut of 55,000, and then this one for 935. So just looking at the numbers here, we can see that there's a 500 square foot difference and one less bath, and then you're looking, of course, at the dollar amount, and this was what I said, 55, so 1.7 versus 935. So I believe that's right. Yeah, $55,000 price cut. What am I saying? 1.7, 1.2. So 1.2 versus 935. That's a big difference for a bath and 500 square feet. So I'm not surprised that this one in particular went pending for essentially the same product. We can see the inside. It looks new construction. Well, not new construction, but newer construction versus this one. This one looks a little bit newer, has a different style, but from the inside, really, is it all that different? I don't know. I would say it's pretty comparable. Yeah, so I'm not surprised that if your competitor is selling for an extra 100. Well, at the time it was 1.2, so $90,000, $85,000 more. I'm not surprised that this house sold faster than this one for 1.1. Other than that, let's see. The most expensive house on the market right now is this one, and if you want to look at it real quick, we're looking at $327 per square foot, and we can see, okay, $327. This one was sold for $316. Square footage is really only useful in the same subdivision, or if you're looking at very similar housing typology. But yeah, if you saw the pictures inside, it's a decent house, decent shape. 1.1. Yeah, that's probably a better price instead of 1.15. Let's see, what else is in the market? I said I want to do medium price house, and currently the closest thing to our medium price, so our medium price Gig Harbor is $735, is actually a $600,000 house. This is the very going rate now for split level homes, is about $600. Split level homes have a large square footage because of the split level nature, so they do have a daylit basement plus the living area on top, and the daylit basement, some get used, some don't. So some people don't see value in it at all. It's mostly the garage and then the elevated nature of the split level. Let's see. $320 per square foot on a third of an acre. What else we got here? It looks nice inside. So this wouldn't be a bad buy, honestly. If you got to check it out yourself. Of course, I would inspect it to make sure that the work's been done right. Sometimes we have very DIY work done, and it poses more of a threat than the before the repair. So yeah, dated. Looks like they painted the cabinets, and countertops a little dated. But other than that, it looks like new flooring. That's good. That can save you a nice chunk of change. Appliances look good. So yeah, if you just change out you can change out the faces of the cabinets if those are too dated for you, or you can just leave them really and just change the hardware to be less. The hardware looks pretty modern actually. Anyway, $600,000 is probably a very going rate, average going rate for a split level, 4-bed, 3-bath. And then the last thing we want to look is the cheapest, just to get a gauge on what's the high, low, and the middle. And we have this. Where is it? There's a $400,000 house. I swear I saw it. Where is it? Did I? Sorry. Bear with me here. Here it is. Oh, $525. I'm bollocks that up. Overpriced, but it's on 4.3 acres. So that's probably why it's that price. It's out in Purdy, very dated inside, dated. Downstairs, bedrooms downstairs are never the, you know, the most desirable, but it does add square footage and rental possibilities. And it has a 4.3 acres. I don't know how much of that acreage is usable. Let's see. Is there a property history? Satellite. Probably none of it is usable. Maybe it's even been subdivided here. So I'm sure that actually none of it is usable in the back. I'm sure there's a wetland and the creek means you can't access it, and then looks like it's in a, I think it's overpriced, honestly. Even at 4.3 acres, that's pretty overpriced. Noise level medium, that's interesting. I've never seen that before. But yeah, that's, you know, close to 16, and this major thoroughfare, yeah, I think it's overpriced. It'll probably come down. I hope 450, 425. Maybe even less than that, honestly. Anyway, that's what's on the market. We've had 14 price reductions, which is 3 more than last week. 80 homes currently on the market. So these are homes that have been on the market longer than 7 days. And then we just saw what's 5 actually. I totally messed that up. Okay, there we go. I even corrected some of the mistakes I had.